Right,
Okay.
So now let's, I thought a good way to proceed would just be item by item, and most of them we won't have any discussion that's needed, but some of them we will. Does that sound plausible?
Fair enough.
Okay, so first I'm gonna be referring to that, the draft implementation table with those numbers. And again, thank you, Jocelyn, for getting that to us so quickly. I found that to be invaluable. So under, the first note I have of anything I came across is item 2, the selectmen expressed that that's a top 10 priority for them. Same with item 3. But I guess this might be a good time.
What category?
Economic development. I guess this might be a good time to discuss the selectmen's recommendation that we don't use the word consider. Since we're going to have to speak about this, because I think these selectmen brought it to our attention. And
the Economic Development Subcommittee itself went through many iterations in the choice of wording.
yes,
And I'm going to suggest that we softened up our wording at the suggestion of Jocelyn, who is our consultant. So I'm going to ask her to explain or to give us her take on this particular suggestion.
And number 2, economic number 2.
No, number
just
three.
That every
The
year
use of the word consider rather than the use of the word
develop.
Okay.
and then I have something I could say too.
I mean, I think it's hard to talk about it in general. I think we have to talk about the specifics. For example, number 3 is consider establishing new commercial or mixed-use zones. And again, that's different than saying establish new commercial or mixed-use zones. It kind of leaves the door open more for the Planning and Zoning Commission to really think about, do we need this, do we not need this, what do we need, rather than sort of more of a mandate to do it. But
And then
again, so I think when we thought through the specifics of those, the ones that are kind of, maybe we want to have more of a thorough study of the issue before we definitively say we're going to do that, that would
I like the word consider.
considered was used in those circumstances.
is anyone uncomfortable with using the word consider?
No.
I think, like Jocelyn said, we have to go line by line, the places.
Yeah, no, but
No, but just sort of in general.
In general, no.
Consider's a little softer. It's
Yeah.
not as strong of language as develop.
Yeah,
yeah,
and it's not saying that
I like it, and one of the reasons I like it, it's sort of echoing Jocelyn's, but I think it kind of accurately portrays what we do, because anytime we pursue a regulation, it's considered, and twists and turns occur. Sometimes we consider something and we realize there's a lot of unexpected aspects to it. So I think in terms of the impression it gives to the public, I think it's a more accurate way to phrase it.
Well, I think sometimes consider is right and sometimes develop is right. You know, For example, we know we're going to have more affordable housing. So there's nothing to consider.
Yeah, we
We've got to
don't,
go for it and do it.
Certainly, but just in general, don't just replace every word, everywhere it says consider with develop.
No, I
can
I
still
think
use
you
the word
have to
develop.
look at every single one.
okay,
Fair enough, you can still use the word develop, but
okay.
don't just disregard consider.
So,
Right.
so then,
Can I explain why we requested that?
okay,
And again, and we also read the statute that said you don't have to pay attention to our letter, and you can adapt the plan if you wish. But
Thank you.
there is a reason why we said this. And the reason I think why we said this is it's our hope that some of these regulations, some of these proposals will actually happen. And we are great on mapping, surveying, meeting, talking, but actually putting shovels in the ground that we need to do needs to happen. And I think just a reflection, and again, you can consider, and everything, the process is one of consideration, and we don't want you just to whip out 20 new controversial regulations, because that's not wise. But just as a point of reference, if someone has tried to help not only young people, but businesses relocate to Cornwall, we have very small business zones. And for example, there's someone who lives in Cornwall, wants to relocate his business to Cornwall from New York and employ young people. He's for 2 years lived in Cornwall and now has moved to Goshen, where there is more commercial space available. So that's why we're thinking, a couple acres in Cornwall Bridge and in West Cornwall really don't allow for a vibrant local economy. And that's why we hope something will happen in the next 10 years.
well, the last town plan, quite a lot did happen. That was in that town plan.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm sure everyone here is very serious about wanting things to happen. Is that okay for, can we go to item 5? The selectmen suggested, so item 5 is, as it currently reads, this is a little bit of a change, is pursue possible grant funding for the cleanup and redevelopment of the former industrial area on River Road South and Cornwall Bridge. The selectmen proposed deleting the words possible grant funding. So it would be pursue the cleanup and redevelopment of the former industrial area on River Road. Now, first of all, there's a couple prongs to this. First of all, is everyone okay with that for this particular?
I'd like to know the rationale.
The rationale behind that was because I have consulted with various people that are interested in having a business or a relocation into that area. And the problem isn't the lack of grant funding, the problem is the ownership of the lot, and the people that have looked at it and would be able to be in there soon do not feel there's a need for a town grant to remediate and clean up that area. They could do it themselves in-house. And again, it's not a practical suggestion for the town to apply to remediate a piece of property it doesn't have control over. And furthermore, it doesn't make sense for the town to have control over a
The town doesn't
brownfield
currently
site.
control
So-
that property?
What?
The town does not control that
No,
property?
it's owned back taxes, but we are not responsible or in control of the property due to its deterioration. So I think it is a salvageable, useful, potentially wonderful site for a business, but I'm not sure, the goals are to get it back cleaned up, but a grant is not necessarily necessary for all that to happen, according to people that actually do this type of work.
Okay, so, Bill?
I'm good with taking it out, and we can pursue grant funding for it if we want to.
Right. It
Without it
doesn't,
having to be in the town plan.
Is there,
We could pursue the cleanup of it
Fair enough.
regardless.
is there other locations that we want to just broaden this or just
Yeah,
leave it
that's-
specific
so
to
that's-
River Road?
That's the other prong, is that I recognized when, well, actually, Joanne and others, I think, wrote to us, and I think there ought to be the other, do we call them, Jocelyn, I can ask you are they technically called Superfund sites or brownfield sites or federally? What's the technical classification for the?
Well, I'm not sure about the one that Joanne specifically mentioned,
Well,
but the
there's-
general classification is brownfields.
I think that is a Superfund site.
Is,
The one on Route 7
7,
is
yeah.
federally listed. The one on River Road South is only listed on the state list,
so
possible sites.
so Steve brought up, and I agree, and I was thinking it was an oversight that we didn't, perhaps in the natural resources section, speak to this. I wonder if it's possible to broaden it here.
Just something as, and other locations, or does that have to be more specific?
And other brownfields slash.
They really are
Superfund
two
sites.
different things, though. They're two different locations, they're several miles apart.
Yeah.
One's in the general business zone, one is not. They are, I mean, they may have this, there may be some ownership that's linked together, but they're separate properties, and they should be dealt with separately. If you're
Well-
interested in putting it in the plan as cleaning up the other site, or any other site, that's fine.
Well, I
But
think if it's-
this is different.
I think
But then
it's-
it wouldn't go here in
Right,
economic
it doesn't go
development.
here, this is not under economic development.
Right, fair enough.
Yeah, it would go under conservation maybe.
I'm, as
Well,
the co-chairperson of the subcommittee, I'm fine with removing grandfathered.
Okay, so
Okay.
about the other part of it, though, Jocelyn, is it if we add this to natural resources in some form, does it throw the need, does this qualify as more than a tweak and an edit? That, okay. So let's keep it in mind when we get to natural resources. Okay? Okay. So then, I don't have anything until, number 7, the select, well, I guess we should,
Let's go.
I'd like to speak to 7. I
well,
think we should change the word from consider to develop, and I have a reason. You want to hear it?
okay.
When the subcommittee that I was a member of was proposing our farmland regulation amendments, we specifically had allowing farms to have weddings as part of our proposal. And the commission discussed it and decided that it was not specific only to farms, that other people might also like to host weddings if they have the appropriate properties. And we therefore agreed that we would take it out and develop a separate regulation addressing wedding events. So I think we already have considered, and now we should write develop. There were extensive discussions.
Does anyone else have any comments on that?
I would support that.
Yep. So I would say, questioning that is that I think there was more information that came to light than was mentioned at the time that it was attempted to be included in the ag regs, and that information is that these regulations, they sound good, but they're very hard to implement. And the town of Sharon, the zoning enforcement officer, I spoke with her, and she's had a lot of trouble with, they have that kind of regulation in Sharon. She's had a lot of trouble with it. And I'm not sure that we considered that the town of Kent outlawed them and spent a lot of money, like $40,000, defending that decision. And it just seems to be sensible on the part of the commission to really find out why the other towns are having such issues with them. Like, did the, I don't remember that being brought up as part of our discussion.
Wouldn't the development, quote-unquote, process include that kind of homework?
Well,
And is
to
there
me, that's
anybody that says that
considered.
Cornwall can't promulgate a better regulation than the other towns have? Shouldn't we learn from their mistakes?
I think it might be hard to develop a better one, yeah.
I realize it's words and semantics here, but I think, can we say pursue, which is somewhere in the middle? Right, I think we actively should pursue it. If we're, rather than just
I
consider.
think in the interest of time,
I'll
we
leave
should
it
choose
alone.
one. Maybe we should flip a coin, but if we spend this kind of time on things which
Yes.
are non-controversial,
So
we'll
what
be
we
here
gonna do?
until,
You're right.
We can leave it, and the
So,
Board of Selectmen
can we
can be
leave it?
honest.
Okay.
Yeah, because
Come
it's,
to our meetings and crack away.
anytime it says consider, it leaves the door open for planning and zoning to consider it.
Certainly. So
It
Number 8,
doesn't- Okay, so number, so the selectmen had a simple tweak, I don't even know if we have to, they
it
just,
seems like a good idea.
wastewater system instead of,
It's more specific.
yes, so
Certainly makes
that's
sense.
just a simple
Yep.
Okay.
tweak.
Anybody else for us?
I think we're.
I mean, I think, how can, yeah. So then I don't have anything until item on 12, only that, there was, I guess this, I have a comment that I noted of Joanne's, which sort of ties in with, on Rose's.
Are we still in economic?
Yeah, item 12 of economic. I don't know how we could address this in text, but there was just a comment of Joe Rose, which I think Joanne was saying that we don't in this plan specifically address in any way, I think, Mohawk or Trinity. And I don't know, I'm not sure what we could do, but it's a good point that they made.
It is. Yeah, we sort of take it for granted.
Yeah.
Certainly Mohawk, and now Trinity is a, like he suggested.
But it would appear that Trinity will be asking to be
So,
incorporated as
I
a
don't know,
partner,
I'm just-
so that opens the door to that.
Karen, please speak up so we can hear.
It would appear that Trinity will be putting correspondence in to ask to be included in the partnership piece, and that would answer that question. Because they would like to be considered as opposed to,
oh, that's right.
Yeah,
Like in
he's-
that specific
yeah,
one.
yeah.
And potentially some others.
I'll make a note of that. Trinity as partner.
Trinity's a partner.
Yeah, I'm gonna, forgive me for just.
We'll give them all the blanks where we don't have any responsible leads yet. How's that? Joe, my good name on it.
Don't worry, Catherine, you'll get the rest.
Okay, so then, moving ahead, item 14.
Do you want this?
Did you
Um,
Do you want to talk about 13?
Item 13?
You just finished it.
Oh, well, there is, well, that will be covered with item,
This is our business meeting.
that will be, let's see.
I think 12, 13, and 14 are matters that we should consult the Connecticut Attorney General about, just so we're sure that we're,
Well,
That's what we're
no,
taking.
13, 14, and 15.
Okay.
Sorry.
All right.
And I don't think we should discuss them until we've done that.
Yeah, I guess, but just quickly, what the Board of Selectmen talked about was, I guess, deleting 14 because this, the dig once thing sounds like a great idea, but, you know, our wires are overhead and, I don't-
Right, but the point was made
Yes,
that
yep.
if we are going to lose whatever right we have, we should check that out
A little more
before
investigation on that?
before we take it out of the plan.
Are we going to check with our town attorney then? Is that what we're saying, or do we reach out directly to the Attorney General?
Yeah,
Well, that's what,
We can?
yes,
Okay.
yeah,
they're there for us. We voted for them.
Maybe, sometimes.
I can give you the contact of the vote, I can give it to David if you want, the person that I.
If you would send it to Dave, that'd be great,
Okay.
okay.
or Karen.
Separate from the Attorney General, again, we felt delete number 14.
Right.
It's not that important to me.
Right.
Is there I was just wondering, is there a downside to doing it?
Well, we'd like to be somewhat consistent with the plan, and we do rebuild roads every year, and we don't want to have somebody say, well, why aren't you laying the conduit on the far end of College Street, because you just redid the road?
Well, why aren't you?
Because it
doesn't work
doesn't
out
make
that
sense.
Now, we're engaging with the audience again, and we're not supposed to.
Well, he is a select-
Well, I mean, our reason why we don't feel it's prudent is that we'd be spending extra money, and most of the plans or places that we've seen that actually have installed fiber optic cable are doing it overhead, not underground. And again, if we have to then dig up the road again
And this
or
is
do work,
Cornwall.
then, well,
The digging itself is like,
right, it's just another thing.
Okay, we'll just,
Yeah.
we'll delete it.
but let's not delete it until we talk to the Attorney General
That's
about
fine.
whether it takes
But
away.
we'll just remember that.
Yeah,
Well,
Yep.
it says consider instituting, so if we kept it, it wouldn't be a great harm, but I don't.
But then you got seven.
So that was only
75
dig up
other-
the road twice, and it looked like.
Right.
Okay, so we'll
Maybe
leave
if
it,
things change, we don't know what kind of conduit they might need.
okay, so we're agreed to agree with selectmen? Okay. I'm just trying to take notes that we remember all this. So, and we're gonna consult the Attorney General on the fiber stuff?
Yep, 13 and 15.
Okay,
It was also this is one of our priorities to make sure, however we wind up wording this, and we suggested combining some of these fiber optic things together, that we, however we word it, that we don't lose track of the fact that not being connected to the outside world is an issue for people already, let alone and that's only going to accelerate in the next 10 years. So we don't want to somehow find something, I talked to Kate about this, or something. It seems like it needs some work to come up with some sort of balanced presentation, but we don't want to dilute the overall need to have the town connected
We want to have
with the outside.
connectivity.
We want to be connected.
We
We
got
don't
it.
want to pull up.
We get that.
yeah. Okay, okay, then, hiking, item 16, there was correspondence from, John Harding where he wants us, of course, to understand that, there are obstacles to doing that. And, his point of view, which he has some legal backing, and, that would make it that there's the land he owns is a real obstacle to doing that. It's possible that some other legal opinion would feel differently if someone spent enough money. But anyway, I'm just wondering if we want to alter the phrasing there in any way, or if we're happy with it.
The selectmen are suggesting that it be changed from develop to support on
Right.
item number 16.
Yeah, right, I missed that in
There was one member of the Economic Development Subcommittee who was had very strong opinions about this, and it was his language that we incorporated, but I don't think he reflected the majority of the people around the table.
So are we
So
okay
can let go
with,
of it.
are we okay with support?
Yes,
I think it's helpful to have it in there.
we should have
Yeah.
support, we should be supporting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. Okay,
So we can change that.
yeah. So that's good. And zooming ahead here, at lightning speed. Ooh, except that my scrolling is very slow. So item 23, economic, we're still on economic development. The selectmen suggests support instead of develop. That sounds,
Yeah, I'm not sure the Board of Selectmen is the appropriate group.
Again, those would be private funds, and the
Yeah.
Board of Selectmen can't set up
Yeah,
private
it's-
funds.
I'm thinking of more like the Cornwall Association.
Or the Cornwall Foundation,
Right.
I suggested it to members of the Cornwall Foundation, and they said, well, Norfolk has a lot more money than we do. So,
Yeah, but-
again,
Okay, support.
self-support, it's a great idea, but I don't think we can do it.
Well, someone has to get the energy to become the lead citizen.
okay. So we're okay with that suggestion, right?
Mhm.
Do we want to look at the leads stuff for that?
We can add the Cornwall Foundation, right?
As partners.
They aren't here, so they can't say no.
Right.
Although it's on tape, yes. Okay. Cornwall Foundation, will remember to add. So the item 26, economic development. Could tie into item 27. Or it could stay the way it is. For me, I don't feel that strongly about item 26. Joanne had the suggestion, which I think is a good one, of adding, it was that the Board of Selectmen, had this suggestion of adding expanded long-distance bus service, item 27.
I agree.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sounds good to me too. And,
It was a point that Joanne had also.
okay, that's right. I got confused. Yeah, so that's right. Yeah, I was right. Okay, let me just mark that. Red. Okay, so now moving, and if anyone has anything I've skipped over, please let me know. I will. That's it for the economic, except there was a suggestion that came up from Hector Prudhomme at the Natural Resources. I just wanted to see, I guess, Gordon's idea, feedback about this. That Hector thought it would be helpful to encourage the Board of Finance to make a long-range financial plan in order to accomplish our long-term goals. And Hector said that Connecticut has a handbook for boards of finance that specifically say how to create a long-range plan, to help accomplish the goals. Have you heard of such a thing?
I've been at Boards of Finance meeting where Hector's made his pitch, and I think they are considering it, but I don't think it's appropriate to put it in the town plan. So I think it's up to the Board of Finance, and there's some discussion of whether what he's proposing is, we already do have a 5-year plan, and some of going beyond that seems a little hypothetical to people on the Board of Finance, and I don't think it's really central. Again, I don't think it's central to the purpose of the town plan.
Yeah, I won't argue with that. I just wanted to bring it up.
Good job.
Okay. Um, so going down the list, the first note I have is on housing, and this housing is the Board of Select, item 4, Board of Selectmen top 10, but we're not, this actually is a good time to bring up. We don't have any plan at the moment to prioritize beyond what's in the plan, right? I mean, we're just gonna accept the selectmen's idea of their priorities, but we're not thinking, or unless anyone else is thinking, that we ought to.
No,
But after,
I just wanted some clarity on that.
no, I think it's better that we just laid out, you know, the goals and the actions and tasks. You know, of course, the selectmen have things they're really interested in having P and Z do. And we should do them if we can,
Yeah.
you know.
well, we had a little discussion about prioritizing certain things in this plan. We're already in the middle of acting on changing the home business regulations and the regulations concerning residential use in commercial zones.
Right.
I think after the POCD is finalized and adopted by us, it would be prudent for us during a planning meeting to develop a priority list of what order we're going to work on regulatory change.
Right.
Yes,
Yeah, I agree. Okay, everybody okay with that?
Yes.
yeah.
I just had a question which we don't really have to talk maybe about, but item 5 is ensure that the zoning, you know, Joe might have looked really into this. Ensure that the zoning regulations allow the conversion of existing homes to multifamily. I thought that they do allow that.
Well,
Well, we did accessory apartments.
No, it's homes. I thought that was allowed. That a home can have, is it multi,
yeah, it's multiple.
so it's more than apartments?
Not necessarily.
No, but it might be
What are you
more than
thinking?
one apartment. It might be
Because
more
I
than
thought-
one.
I thought there
And we did that on the accessory apartment.
I thought you could have like up to like 4 apartments or something in an existing home.
Well, then we don't really need it.
You know, the problem is the building inspector. It's not the
Yeah.
expense, it's not a rent.
Multifamily is different than-
So maybe we should just, we don't have to think about that now, but we'll
Yeah.
just look into, see if we,
I think we need to keep that.
if we allow this already.
Okay.
I don't think we have to confirm that now.
No, but it's good that it's there. It's not a
Well,
bad thing.
it's only good that it's there if it's not in our regs already.
But if it's not in our regs, then we could maybe work to,
No, I'm saying,
I think,
it
I
is in
think
our
it's
regs.
Oh, okay.
speaking to the fact that it's really not
No, I think it's in our,
exactly clear.
I think it's in our regs, but maybe you could think about it.
Yeah.
I'm Joe.
Look at it.
So,
So I think right now you can do multifamily if you're the Cornwall Housing Corporation, but you can't do multifamily if you're anybody else.
is that what it is? Okay, well then you're right, but.
Yeah, I
You
was
can have an
pretty sure
accessory
that was
apartment, or maybe even, I don't,
Right.
but you
Okay.
can't do more than, you can't do more than 2 units on a property if you're not Cornwall Housing.
But let's not spend too much time here. I'll go and check this carefully when I'm
Yeah,
home,
no, I
too.
think,
Yeah,
I
I'm
think
pretty
that the
sure that we
wording
put it
needs
in
to
there
Okay.
for.
well, then it's
change.
fine that it's there because.
Yeah, well then, it's good.
Yeah,
It's an easy win if it is.
So then,
right.
well, the hard part of that is that it's really hard to do because it's more expensive to do that than it is to build new. But I guess they can build new then, but,
Yeah.
okay, so item 7. You know, I think it's okay. So item 7 is consider decreasing the minimum lot size required. Now, I guess we all probably know how controversial this would be, but I just want to pass along 2 comments I got from the public, which is part of the the record now because it was passed along to Karen. I got them first, but then I passed them along. You know, one was from Joanne, who really didn't think this was a good idea. The other one was from Sam Waterston, who really didn't think this was a good idea. And this isn't a big sampling, but I don't view them as probably in agreement on all topics. And it's just a little heads
Pat
up.
Mulberry spoke to it too.
It's a little heads up that I would expect there to be loud opposition to this, and I guess you all would probably expect that too.
Yes.
Yeah, that doesn't mean we shouldn't consider it.
That's
correct.
No, but let me speak on that behalf. One of the reasons, me personally, why I moved to Cornwall was the large lot sizes. It is, like Joanne pointed out, one of the things that makes us unique, a little bit different in this area, that we do have the largest lot size. Some of the things that were proposed under item 7 was, I guess maybe it was with the Board of Selection. As far as, there's a couple of things we have to do. We could allow smaller houses, tiny houses. You don't have to decrease the lot sizes.
We already do allow small
Yeah.
houses.
We
got
allow
rid of the
any size
buildable.
of house.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
that's
that
one,
years ago.
that's one of the tools that we implemented. We haven't yet seen the fruits of it. And then the other thing too is, a builder looks at a piece of property, not as acreage, he looks at it as a building lot. How many building lots are there? It doesn't matter if they're 1 acre building lots, quarter acre building lots, 5 acre building lots. They get sold as a building lot, and the price is what a building lot costs. Whatever I have to spend for a lot, that's what it is. Whether it's 5 acres, it could be 100 grand. Whether it's 2 acres, it's still gonna be 100 grand. I'm not going to, as a builder, I'm not going to pass that savings on. That's what it costs to build. That's what a building lot costs. The acreage of that lot is sort of irrelevant. When it comes to a building lot.
I think these are all very important considerations, you know, and we'll have to talk about it.
And one of the other things I just want to make and talk about it is that it's sort of like we're trying to control something here. So we are implementing ideas to control and get an outcome that we want. If we put too much input, we might get an outcome that we did not expect. The pendulum might swing way over to another side that we weren't anticipating. So I guess my proposal, my thought is small steps in those directions, so we don't create a swing in a direction that we're not really comfortable with.
Yeah, well, you know how long it takes us to do anything.
I know, and I've commented on that.
I think it's in here because there's a need to make it cheaper.
Certainly, I don't know what that's going to do with them.
Can I just say why we felt it was a priority?
Yes.
Because also, having worked with young people trying to move in town, they are often confronted with what I call is the geometry of no. They look at a piece of property in Cornwall, and even somebody that was looking at a 12-acre piece that they were looking to share amongst 3 people, by the time you take out the setbacks, the buildable area, the wetlands, the topography, the driveway cuts, the most they could get, even though this was in a 3-acre zone, were 2 house lots. And again, if we are currently, over the last 10 years, building 1.4 houses a year, with the pendulum or the brakes have been pretty well applied, and there's no doubt this would be controversial, but again, these zones that were set up a very long time ago, and since the very long time ago, there has been very significant acreages of lands preserved, and we are not seeing a housing option, and this would take a long time to work through, but from the research we did, we are an outlier in the area, and again, trying to put smaller houses on smaller lots would have much less impact than bigger houses on big lots. So that's for another year to decide whether it makes sense, but generally smaller houses on smaller lots have less impact visually than a big house on a big lot. If you want to chew up a town, 5 acres at a time is a good way to do it. I think. Just a thought, something to consider.
And just because we say consider, and the issue that we're going to consider is already controversial, doesn't mean we should take it out of the plan. We just have to understand that it's controversial, and it may not be the very first thing we do.
And it may not be something that gets done. It may be something that the town will not approve.
Right.
After all, the town has a right to come to a hearing and say what they feel about every zoning regulation, not just this one.
Certainly, just but also though studying and looking over the survey, it's not steadfast or directly clear that the majority of the people in the town, at least that did the survey, are looking to go in that direction. Arguments can be made on both sides.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I don't think this is the place to make the arguments. I just think it's a place to say that it's something we're going to consider, and we know it's controversial.
Has anyone,
it doesn't necessarily have to be like every 3-acre lot. It's cut into 2 1.5 acre
No.
zoning lots. I mean, we could
It
potentially
could-
add additional zoning areas that are 1 point,
Or it could
whatever.
simply be Gordon's hypothetical. There are 12 acres, 3 people want to build houses on them.
Well, you gotta be, I guess you'd have to, you can't just pick and choose which lots you wanna do. It makes somebody's land, worth a lot more once you increase the amount of building lots that are on it.
I think that that map of the potential building space
Certainly does inhibit a lot.
would help with that,
tell
right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
So I don't disagree with that.
you know, my point of view, which I didn't want to argue it too much about doesn't worry me as much as some of the considers in the economic section, like the expansion of the building along, at intersections, state intersections and commercial zones, but the point I would make is that, to me, that I actually think that would hurt Cornwall economically, because our fertile ground here isn't that kind of business. I mean, businesses go to Kent or Canaan. Our fertile ground is people who want to live in a beautiful place, and we're hoping our home-based business regs is going to make that easier for people. So I would just be worried that that one and perhaps this one would actually end up hurting us economically.
That's
But-
fine, but we're still going to consider.
Yeah, so I don't want to go any further.
Could I weigh in on one thing though, in support of keeping this in? And I'm speaking from experience
All right.
of several other towns. There are many towns around us that are beginning to look at development of lots that are environmentally more sensitive. And I think that that's something that young people, it isn't the size of the lot so much. And when you say a building lot and this and that, it's how you build on the lot and what you can do. And I think that the shift to better building,
Yeah, but we don't have that.
well, that's
Maybe that would be
considered
something-
increasing the minimum is opening the door to looking at more appropriate regulation for appropriate use of lots to construct houses in a
Yeah,
fashion.
but that's not in play yet, so if you're right.
That's, so consider
It's being-
decreasing because it opens the door to looking at regulations in Canada and other places are doing.
Is there
But
any-
again, it's not in motion, it's just,
So-
all
It's considered.
I'm
yes.
happy to move on it, but
right,
is it okay moving on
I just,
with that?
yeah, maybe, no, I'm not 100% okay with it.
Okay, well, let's not that. I mean,
What if you add, as suggested earlier, in appropriate locations?
Yeah,
There you go.
and maybe not put in numbers as 1.5 and 2.5. They get exaggerated, we sort of heard it a little bit tonight, 1.5 became 1.
And actually, instead of, yeah.
Consider decreasing lot sizes
And
where
what-
appropriate,
How about changing?
changing lots, yeah, better word.
You can sometimes do something different with an overlay in one particular place, if it would fit correctly with all the other aspects, with wetlands and slopes and so on. So you wouldn't, say 1.5 or 2, I think that's risky to
Yep.
chop it up. But
So
I
we're gonna
think-
get rid of 1.5 and 2.5 and go with consider changing lot sizes?
In certain zones, or
Or from where
certain
appropriate.
Why don't you just say where appropriate?
where appropriate, that's
Where
better.
appropriate, yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, if you
We're
look at
conforming
the,
to all the other land regulations.
yeah, because when you look at what's available, it might make a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So that would be it,
Yeah.
Yeah.
the whole thing. Consider changing lot sizes where appropriate.
No, decreasing. Consider decreasing the minimum lot size required by zoning to build a lot where appropriate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you could go on to say currently Cornwall zoning allows 3 and 5 acre lots. Consider changing,
I would stop right there.
I would
I
leave
would
it
stop
there.
there too.
So stop where?
at the second consider.
So get rid of the second two sentences?
Yeah.
No,
Consider
leave the
decreasing lot
parenthesis.
sizes?
So how does
Just
it-
get rid
how
of the
does it read?
sentence.
How does it read, Justin?
I guess I can just say, consider decreasing the minimum lot size required by zoning to build a lot where appropriate.
No, there you go.
Changing, not decreasing.
No, we
No,
need
decreasing.
Well, we do really
Why
need-
would we say changing?
We need
Because that
decrease.
means it could
It's
be
only
big.
about decreasing.
Where appropriate is the key word.
It is the key word because it means you're going to think about it.
Okay,
And we may create overlay zones, and we may use your map to find them.
okay, so that's, if we're all on board with that? So then, well, that was a good discussion. Thank you.
Thanks for persistence.
Yeah, thank you, Steve.
Thank you, listen.
Then, I don't really have anything until the end. Oh, this might be something for Gordon too. I mean, I'm just in the effort of no stone unturned. Sort of segueing after item 14 in the housing. I just wanted to ask, how about considering, maybe as item 15, considering increasing the town's annual contribution to the housing corporation, the Cornwall Housing Trust. So that would be a question, like how about adding, consider increasing the town's annual contribution to the Cornwall Housing Trust. Is that all right?
What didn't we like about that? This is number
Well, I
15?
don't think it's in
We
there.
haven't put it
No,
in
it
there.
isn't in there.
And so I'm bringing it
Oh,
up.
okay.
And again, when I did talk to Maggie about things, and it's my general feeling when we've done housing in the past, we've done, a private, I mean, in order, as you're talking about, and right now we do support that organization. If we're talking about substantial support, and you really have a project to do, you probably can raise the funds privately, was probably the vehicle that's worked in the past. So, and again, if they came to us for money with a project, we would of course consider their work, but I don't think it needs to be in our plan.
So the reason I would think it might be good is this town and this plan is so emphatic about the need for the work that the Cornwall Housing Trust does. So why not support them more explicitly and have it be just part of our, proud, statement of purpose as a town, right? Because we're in support of it.
Again,
And
whatever, I would feel
taxes-
I would feel better about doing that if my conversation with the chair of the corporation felt that that was a real necessary next step. And I do talk to her about fundraising for buying land here and things like that. And those aren't, I think there needs to be consideration to the people that are actually doing the housing work and what their requests are. And that's, I didn't see traction for that particular idea.
What if we add to goals, like, I think of the goals in the text of the plan as kind of policies, like, if we added something like, support the efforts of the Cornwall Housing Corporation as a general goal.
Perfect.
Yep.
Because they're not mentioned.
Right. Because a lot of times too, the most effective support isn't necessarily another $5,000. It's going through meetings, it's working with landowners, working with the health district. So there's a lot of stuff that's not the most, sometimes the best support isn't even the monetary support. So I think a broader statement would be good, and you could even put other organizations, including Habitat or other, housing advocacy groups that may pop up in the future.
We have a number of other similar considerations. Continue supporting the EDC's website, considers continuing to support blah, blah, blah.
Is
So
everyone all right with
it's
that?
in keeping with that.
Okay. And then, Wes, we're
But
almost done.
EDC calls for money in the action step.
Okay, so in the
Yes, it does.
of natural resources, item 7, and I have some things I haven't even been bringing up is little edits about the abbreviations of the groups, which I can send to Jocelyn separately. Item 7, which reads, protect Mohawk Pond and Green Hill Lake and improve the impaired water quality of,
Must be Millbrook.
yeah, but that's not what that's true, but Furnace Brook and the Houstonic River, the Natural Resources Subcommittee is suggesting instead saying, protect all of Cornwall's water resources, including all water bodies such as aquifers, wetland areas, lakes, ponds, streams, and riparian buffers, improve the impaired water quality, and then of Millbrook, Furnace Brook, and the Houstonic River. I guess it's just adding that sentence about all the water in Cornwall being important.
Do we add
And the Hollenbeck?
Do we add inland wetlands as a partner then? I mean, that's sort of their job, isn't it?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. It gives,
I don't think you have to have them as a partner.
No, I mean, that's their job.
That's their job.
That's their job, that's what
Actually,
they do.
yeah,
We could put them as a responsible lead.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah, because I think in
rather than.
improving the impaired water quality, Houstonic River is well beyond the scope of the board of selectmen. And I would like to have somebody else really do that. In addition to Millbrook, I'm not quite sure.
it didn't say the Houstonic, oh, it did. It
Yeah.
did.
yeah, it did.
I think that's a bit of that's a bit of a
And the
reach.
Hollenbeck is
But
right,
it's
yeah.
stretch.
It's a stretch, I mean, we are
Although
pretty
it's beyond
confident what it's
Cornwall,
not.
it would give an opening to the, some effort that appeared that would be protecting the Houstonic for us to throw our support in.
Though Gordon, it would,
It doesn't have like any financial obligation. there.
No,
It's
it
just-
makes
it's-
sense to be a little bit more inclusive and incorporate some of the other waterways in town and not be so selective.
and if there's things that we're doing that are not improving the Houstonic River, that we can work towards
So,
those.
And take
is
it
that
off the
okay?
shoulders.
Please hold that.
We're doing detrimental
It
things
seems-
to it.
It seems pretty harmless.
I'm
The,
not
That's
agreeing.
fine, that's fine.
Yeah, especially since P&Z doesn't have to do anything about it.
Yeah, I mean,
And
it's
give it to the
You guys can take that one if you want.
okay, and then,
I know this is your meeting, may I make a small comment?
a very, very small,
You might want to move Houstonic River up to the protect Mohawk Pond, Cream Hill Lake, and the Houstonic River. You can protect those elements. The impaired waters are actually those that are on the 303D list. And I believe that also includes the Hollenbeck River, which is also supposed to have been added.
Well, there is you mean include, well, there are two sentences that were proposed.
Right, one's protect and the other one is
Improve.
Right.
So what are you suggesting?
Housatonic River should go to protect, and Hollenbeck should be added to improve.
And you named a list, is that a state list?
That is.
A list of,
303D list. It's the list of impaired waters.
okay.
So add the Hollenbeck to the impaired?
Yes.
Everybody okay with that?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, it's protect, well, it would be all of Cornwall's water resources, including the water bodies such as aquifers, wetland areas, lakes, ponds, streams, and riparian buffers, and the Housatonic River. Improve the impaired water quality of Millbrook, Furnace Brook, and the Housatonic, and the Hollenbeck. And the Hollenbeck. Okay?
I think you should say wetlands and water courses because it doesn't include everything.
Yeah, if you can give a
Wetlands and
blanket.
water courses.
So instead of wetland
Well,
areas?
maybe just in addition to what Karen's got.
Wetlands and water courses because lakes, ponds, bogs.
Little tiny streams,
Go
yeah.
to all,
They all contribute.
did you mean water courses?
You mean
Wetlands and water courses.
Instead
which is
of,
Well,
instead
maybe
of
that's
lakes,
instead of
ponds,
it,
streams?
just include it in there.
Just say wetlands and water courses and get rid of
That's a couple
the
of extra
lakes,
words.
ponds, streams. Because those are just some of the wetlands and water courses, not protect all of them.
Isn't it implicit that all these things are taken care of? I mean, other plans must have, I mean, there's nothing new being done here, except maybe put in repair if that's necessary, but I don't know.
I don't know, it's there.
What?
So, well, that sounds okay to me. Improve all of Cornwall's water resources, including all water bodies such as,
Not improve, protect.
well, protect, I guess I'm getting a bit of slap
I'm gonna
happy here.
protect all of them
And then
include the
improve
listed ones.
aquifers, wetlands, and water courses. Improve the impaired water quality, Millbrook, Furnace Brook, and the Hollenbeck.
Remember, the reason it's important to mention those specifically is that there may be grant funding available in the future through the state. One can always pray. And if it's not in our plan, we're less likely to get money.
Okay, that might be, does anyone have any? There was a comment, add the word for 20 in the spirit of considering. I think it doesn't have the word consider, so we could add consider applying to the state.
Didn't we already go through that with the last PLCD?
Well, that was in it, but it went as far as the town road.
Okay.
It didn't get to the state. So how about, I would just suggest saying, consider applying to the state
Okay.
instead of whatever it said something a little stronger. Is that all right?
Did we want, sorry, that was number which one?
20.
Did we want to go back to, under natural resources, did we want to designate, didn't we want to comment something about the other brownfields?
Oh, yeah, we did. The other locations.
It's sort of 17A for short term until we renumber.
Oh, yeah.
We wanted to add those
Do
other
you
locations.
think it would be appropriate somehow?
Because it wasn't in a commercial area, right? Because the other
Yeah.
brownfield site was in
But
a
how did-
commercial area.
What's
So we
that?
wanted to, well, it's sort of the same thing as, which number was
Was
it?
the one economics.
No, but you mentioned 17, which is.
Well, 17 is the last
No,
one, I said
17 is
17.
the last one,
So
so
it'd
he's
be
saying
like
all of
17A.
Well, actually, no, 21's the last
21
one, it's
is
another
the last.
page. But
So-
21
So-
21 in.
So 22 Right?
Yep.
I get stuck on
Yeah, right.
But thank you, Phil. Very good. So that was, can someone suggest some wording?
I suggested in other locations.
Jocelyn, it'd have to do with the brownfield sites in Cornwall.
Which was the.
Support efforts to manage,
To,
So what did we say in the other one?
to remediate, support
Yeah.
efforts to remediate
support remediation,
for the Superfund site.
support remediation for the Superfund sites in Cornwall, of Superfund sites in Cornwall.
Do you
It's
want
only
to say
one,
super?
right, Gordon?
I think we should not put the S in there.
Yeah, I'd say you want to say brownfield instead of superfund.
Yeah,
because
say
that's a
brownfield.
separate
Of
federal
brown
designation.
field. Is there only one other one
Well,
besides under the bridge?
probably just only one of them.
Well, we could then say which, the brownfield site on, what is it? It's on
Route 7.
Route 7,
Yeah.
right? Let's just say that.
That's fine.
Okay,
I had another thing in there too, just before that.
okay.
Who's doing that? Who's the lead?
What's that?
Who's the lead on that one that we just discussed?
Supporting remediation of brownfields.
Um,
7.
Who's the lead on
Tonic
the
Valley
list?
Association, no.
The CCC is doing everything else in that section.
Okay.
Why don't we just have
Fine.
them? Is that, the
Mhm.
Conservation Commission could be the lead on that one. It's support remediation of the brownfield
Yeah, it's
sites
definitely within our,
on Route 7.
we take it out.
Okay, thank you.
The other thing, the other one was in 21. Did we want to talk about the wireless RF pollution along with the noise and light?
21.
Right above it, right above the.
Yeah.
I'm not sure that.
I don't know if it goes
There's
there.
a general scientific consensus that all EMF radiation should be referred to as a pollutant.
Okay. I'm just bringing it up because it was brought up to us.
Yeah, I
What
know.
did Washington, Connecticut do?
But, you know, those opinions that are being expressed and concerns are generally minority opinions.
Mhm.
Yeah, there is nothing conclusive. Radio waves being flying around the atmosphere since the beginning of time. Just throwing it out there.
There's one other thing about this, about number 21. It says noise and light pollution, but then we're only considering regulating outdoor lighting.
Because there was a specific
In
reg
residential districts.
example
Right.
for that, but is that,
Well,
I think, so we can say example
Yeah, call it an
instead
example.
of consider, we could say example. Connecticut DEP standards, or example
I'm just saying,
outdoor, right,
noise is a contentious issue because we're an agricultural community and we have lots of noise that can't be regulated. Just saying.
Right. So maybe if we use the word example instead of consider, incorporating, we say,
I'm just saying,
yeah,
maybe we should get rid of noise here.
Well, noise is very important for things like gun clubs and other really.
Yeah, motocross
aggressive.
racing.
I don't think anyone's going to complain about farm noise.
They complain about timber harvest.
They do complain about farm
hay.
noise.
They complain about A lot of agricultural activities.
That doesn't mean that we have to,
Well,
again, it's
And that's not
considered.
farm,
We
you know,
need to
like farm.
consider,
it is
we need to do our
considered.
homework, we need to look at those standards, see if they even apply
Yeah.
to Cornwall and the kinds of businesses that we have here.
All right.
But I would
Okay.
just eliminate
I'm
the
just
second
saying.
sentence, because it's already been stated, outdoor lighting.
Consider, you just get rid of that?
Forget about the second sentence.
Well, it was
I mean, the
called
third sentence, the
The
final
third one.
sentence.
Yep,
Yeah.
Which is what?
I'm all right with that.
it was in quotes because that's what they call it.
Oh, the example of Washington.
That's what they call it in Washington, but that could be clearer. Example, Washington, Connecticut,
So we're gonna get rid of that?
outdoor
It can also
lighting
get
and
moved
Yeah,
to.
the term is dark skies, keeping the light from going up and allowing people to see the Milky Way and stuff.
Meteors tonight.
So we could say, example, Washington, Connecticut's, quote, outdoor lighting in residential districts.
Why do we even need to mention them? I mean,
Well,
Well, it might be like tennis court lighting.
It helps, I think it helps a future commission to have somewhere to
Well,
go
the-
and look. you know.
I don't see, yeah, it could, but there are probably other examples that could be referred to. But you've already got,
It's
this-
just,
you've got the Connecticut deep, standards as well, so it just seems like you don't need it.
You could
I think
put it-
that's part of our homework to consider anyway.
You could put it in the notes section of the implementation table instead of having.
Yep.
I mean, throughout the
I like that.
regulations, there could be other things that we could use as examples, but we don't need to refer to all of them here.
And could we change the order of the sentences in 21 so that the actual action sentence is the first sentence, consider incorporating Connecticut deep
Yes, that's
standards
a good
Yes.
idea.
for noise and light in
Yeah.
current and new regulations.
Good.
The statement above is just kind of like an introduction, and none of the other ones have introductions.
Good.
and I think that there was a thought expressed that those standards aren't the be-all and end-all. They, consider regulations such as Connecticut deeps. I mean, some people I've heard aren't that impressed with those particular standards.
The problem with this whole thing is it's fairly personal consideration on, some people think that something's noisy and somebody else doesn't think it is noisy at all, so. It's more of an opinion than a hard and fast chunk of cement or something,
Well, it could be, at least what I'm thinking this could be in reference to, for instance, in our new regs for home-based businesses, that it would be very helpful for us to have some specific guidelines instead of having it be vague. And that this, for stuff like noise, because if we're going to allow in a larger business in a residential zone, that would be something we want to try to protect the neighbors with.
Well, but we don't say anything about it being a residential zone in here either.
No, but we don't
I'm
say
just
this.
saying, yeah.
So Jocelyn had an idea, add to appendix these examples. Is that what you said?
Oh, I just was noting that the implementation table has a column for notes.
It does?
Yeah, it's cut off on this.
Oh.
Yeah, it's this big.
It's farther to the right.
Oh, okay, all right.
For things like that.
Yep.
As you go along, if you find that there are, examples or, so you could move it there or you could leave it where it is.
I think moving over to notes is.
So we could say incorporate Connecticut, or how about best practice standards, Connecticut to EP or best practice standards in current and new regs.
That sounds fine.
Yeah.
And most towns that start to look at
Okay.
home-based businesses and things in residential zones usually are looking at upping the regulations in terms of landscaping and impact. So that has a lot to do with lighting, landscaping.
So
And
community
that
and,
does address a lot.
community and cultural resources. Adam, you stayed for this. So the, item 1, the Board of Selectmen suggests appoint instead of hire.
How about say appoint or hire?
No, why?
Well, because I mean, I see that it's like, it doesn't have to be somebody that's hired. Like maybe Janet Sanders is able to get some grant funding to appoint somebody, but why not say appoint or hire? So as long as the job's getting done.
We don't have to hire, we might have to hire somebody eventually.
Exactly. Like we can't appoint somebody.
Well,
I'd support you in that, Ben.
Yeah, why not?
We're running low on
Or
volunteers. We have to shell some cash eventually.
Give them a house.
You know, we,
well, okay.
you know, Gordon, does that seem?
Right, it just seems most towns don't have this as a paid position. And I think if we were hiring people, we'd probably have, we might have other tasks that they would do, but appoint or hire is fine.
Okay. And this is the advantage of doing all this in one meeting. Get it done.
There weren't really any, have there been any comments other than that one about this whole section?
No, we just did a really good job.
Well, there were the,
More and more.
There's
Yeah,
a lot
I'll
of
just say that-
volunteer needed.
yeah, something, Joanne had wondered that in item 4 and 5 and 7, if the Board of Selectmen could be mentioned as leads. Create a public-private partnership program to entice new young family. At the moment, it's saying volunteer needed, so,
4, 5, and 7 under housing?
no,
Under
under
this one.
the
Cultural.
yeah, cultural, so each of those simply have volunteer needed, whereas it would be probably better to find something more.
Well, number 7 is easy. Consider creating age-specific events with enhanced outreach, like a bridge dance. Why can't Park and Rec be put in there?
Yeah,
We
that's
could use some
right.
ideas.
There you go, it's all
Whoops.
yours, Steve.
Uh,
And the EMS provided, number 7. And number 5, the Board of Selectmen already has done work in that area, haven't you?
Correct.
Yep.
So we'll put you back in there. And the public-private partnership, maybe it should be the Cornwall Child Care Center lead.
Well, except it's much broader than fundraising efforts to pay for 4 preschool children. It's to entice new young families to town. So I think the Economic Development Commission has to be involved in that.
Well,
They
the
would-
goal
And
of,
if they do it, it is one of their things that they do.
Yeah, they
the goal of
interact
that
with
is
the
to increase
schools.
student enrollment in the school, right?
Right.
So,
Give it to EDC, Janet's not here.
Yeah, right. And this isn't on tape.
It's a good thing.
she's already started on most of the other ones.
Okay, so that's,
Well, actually, she kind of does.
so we,
part of that.
we just assigned that to EDC and the Board of Selectmen for item 5 and Park and Rec for item 7. So, thank you, Joanne, for bringing that to our attention. Let's see. Oops.
My only thought is, we can have all the incentives we want, but if there's no place for firemen to live, they're gonna look a lot like I do in older
You just keep being that squeaky wheel. That's
I'm
it.
just telling you, I'm just saying, that's
No,
why
it's
you have,
going to keep
that's why
saying
you
it.
have
It's
to
like
have,
a very important thing for everyone to hear.
you have to have priorities. If you don't address the housing thing, then none of these things,
That's
other
right.
things will happen.
We'll be setting priorities.
And the things that the selectmen chose to be priorities are all in housing and economic development.
Right.
I'll repeat that.
Read that.
10 things that the selectmen chose to be priorities are all in housing and economic development.
We
We're
have heard you.
listening.
I know, I understand. I understand you've heard it.
Item 8, revise zoning to allow social service professionals to locate in Cornwall Plains. There was, Joanne had a question about,
That's what we're doing anyway.
of why prioritize Cornwall Plains instead of the others. They are allowed now in the other commercial zones, so this would be a new commercial zone. I think actually I'm okay with item 8, so I'm just,
I once had a doctor's office in Cornwall Plains, and it went through planning and zoning in 1988. I think the idea of wanting the people who are going to serve the aging population
yeah,
to entice them to come and live here, Cornwall Plains or Village would be
Maybe.
an ideal spot.
how about maybe consider on revising on zoning? Because maybe
All right,
everyone,
we'll put consider in there.
maybe everyone in Cornwall Plains is against it.
Yeah,
You
okay,
know?
consider revising.
I mean, there's no harm in that.
Yeah, I mean,
You know, that's,
the thing is, if we're talking about a home-based business like you have,
I think it's very good.
right, it's going to be part of the home-based business for us.
yeah,
Right.
Yeah, so that would, instead of changing the zone, it would be, yeah,
yeah.
Yeah.
okay. Let's see.
Excuse me, David, just could you be clear? So you're not suggesting changing the zoning?
Well, we're going to add the word consider. So consider revising zoning.
Well, we're going to be revising the home business regulations, and they will encompass this whole concept. But we're not going to
Yeah.
focus on Cornwall Plains
Yeah.
Well, then
individually.
why aren't you taking this out then, Anna, based on what you just
Are we
said?
taking up points?
Out of consideration for the hardworking committee that came up with it, I guess.
I think there was a recognition that Cornwall Plains offered a unique area as already a hub for other social services like the library, like the town government. And it didn't have, and it is strictly just, a lot of other residential. It offered unique opportunity, we felt, by highlighting it. But there wasn't,
I'd like to talk to you after the meeting because I think it sucks it off away from the economic activity that you're supposedly wanting to drive. And you pull off these services and you put them here and you don't attach them to any economic activity existing here. Because Cornwall Plains has made it very clear they don't want any economic activity here.
I don't know
The
if they
doctor
would have
didn't
checked
stay
that out.
very long. There's a reason for that.
I got a request from somebody for a coffee shop in Cornwall Village, so we can walk around. They'd love to have a place just to grab a bite to eat. Not that I'm saying you should put a coffee shop into your thing, but this might be the thin edge of the wedge to start
right.
getting alternate places here in the center of town.
I think that was the goal.
And I think
It was a way of looking at.
It's much more, it's a, it's a
Yeah.
compromise, slower approach. than-
We've said it
Exactly.
before about other things, just
Right.
because it might be controversial doesn't mean it can't be considered.
That's right.
Yeah, right.
Also, we're talking 10 years. I mean, my goodness, we used to have
Right.
Marvelwood School and all kinds of things happening in the village. And now that's all gone away and we've got these
Right.
big white houses sitting here sort of half
I think it
empty.
is, it's also important to remember too, that we now require our seniors and everybody to go to other towns to get their health care, their physical therapy, their yoga, their dance lessons, whatever they're going to be doing. So let's try to have them stay
Right.
at home.
Well, Dr. Walker.
I mean, there was there's like 50 people here in a book thing today, which is great,
Yeah.
from other towns.
Okay, so we're okay with that?
Yep.
And then, does anyone have anything else on any of the specific tasks?
What is complete streets?
Paper roads, right?
Complete Streets is a new program that Rick Lynn and the COG has made known to us that would incorporate considerations of pedestrians and bicyclists in DOT planning in village centers. So we, as the Board of Selectmen, have said we will be willing to look at using this planning tool, work with DOT at the famous Triangle and Cornwall Bridge to see if there's ways we can incorporate or accommodate better pedestrians and people on things besides.
Thank you. Where can we get a copy of the reg?
It's not a reg as much as it's a program that's going to unfold in the next year or two.
So, anything else on any of the tasks?
Complete streets should probably be in parentheses,
Sure.
just because it has a certain significance. It's a catchphrase.
Where is this? What
Number
number?
11, very
Very
last.
last
The
page.
very last thing, the very last.
Complete streets is an actual phrase. It's a thing.
There we go, buzzword.
It's a thing as opposed to.
Okay, so
Yeah.
yeah, a couple, so the main thing we have to do, really, this is important, is we have to decide about when to have the public hearing.
So,
That's, if we wanted to keep it to November, we want to decide that now so that there's time to get an announcement into the Chronicle. If we wanted to go past, so that's the reason we have to decide that now.
And the only other thing we didn't talk about, and I don't know if we need to, are the maps.
They're wonderful.
Well,
I don't think we need to
there's
talk about
edits,
them.
there's edits, right?
We're gonna put all those maps in?
There are
Oh,
more
there was
edits
one,
to the
In
maps.
the appendix, Steve.
Yeah, so they're all gonna be in the town plan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
there was one more than edit, I guess, on one of the plans. The only one I could think of is the land use plan map.
policy map?
Yeah, policy map. The reason it's called a policy map, really the only that I can tell, the real reason it's called that is it has to say where sewage is, where townwide sewage is recommended, is that right? Or-
Well, I mean, it's more general than that. It's the
It's-
one map required by statute to be in your plan. And it has to, you're supposed to give your general policy on land uses within the town. So where residential should go, where commercial should go,
I
where,
thought particularly
and it has to mention, any,
public,
public infrastructure. So if you are proposing sewer, public sewer, or want to avoid public sewer.
so as it currently stands, it's only recommending public sewer in West Cornwall, I think. Right?
Doesn't have anything on here, does it?
Well, it's in the text. There, you had to print, let me see, I can find it.
It's that that other page in front of you with the boxes that are colored, yeah.
Got it.
So where's the text about the sewer, and can you please read it?
For village center areas, these are Cornwall's 3 traditional village, center areas. These areas are desirable for commercial and residential uses. These areas should be pedestrian and bike friendly. Any action investment in these areas should take into consideration ways to strengthen and improve the traditional village character of these areas. Investment in public wastewater treatment systems and/or public water supply would be appropriate in West Cornwall's village center area.
That was
The
one.
policy for the remainder of the town is one of public sewer avoidance.
That was the one I wanted to bring to our attention. Could you read those last two sentences again?
Investment in public wastewater treatment systems and/or public water supply would be appropriate in West Cornwall Village Center area. The policy for the remainder of the town is one of public sewer avoidance.
Now,
Is that true?
It's just right. I was thinking, where did this come from? And I was thinking, why not the Cornwall Bridge? Like, why would we want to say that isn't? I just didn't understand where that came from. So it was,
It seems unduly limiting.
yeah, and I don't,
Is it avoidance because it costs money?
I don't know. So I read that and I thought, this is our document, so we should,
Take
decide
that
about it.
sentence out.
When did that appear? How long has that been in there?
No, so I drafted that language because there has to be some language in there about where you want to see that kind of investment of infrastructure and where you don't.
Okay.
So, but it's, again, for discussion purposes that I drafted it.
Right.
It is a big, and it's as you can see, a huge investment of resources to think about a public wastewater treatment system. And the state basically wants towns to think about where they want to consider investing in that and then having to maintain it over time.
But can it just be considered where we want to put it and not where we don't want to put it? So like, can we just say we want to put it in West Cornwall and leave it at that? Not have that last.
It has to do with where the state's going to want to chip in funds.
I was wondering, what the downside is. I mean, what the upside is to saying we don't want it anywhere else.
Yeah, like why do we say that? I guess that's the question. If we have to say it, I guess so, but.
I don't have the statute in front of me,
Huh.
but I know that all of the other towns that I've worked with on town plans say basically where we don't have sewer now, we don't want it.
Well, it may not be up to us in a certain way. As the climate changes, we may have to revise our opinion about what we want, especially along the river.
So that sentence is,
Just saying. I mean, maybe we don't want to have that sentence there.
yeah.
Well, for some reason or another, it's in all the other documents, so maybe just.
Do we want to limit it to West Cornwall Village Center area
That's what I was wondering. I can't see a reason
for the next 10 years?
why we do.
Yeah.
I was just thinking about the cost of
But
it.
it doesn't
Yeah, well, it doesn't obligate us to put it in. I mean, if we haven't got the money,
Yeah.
obviously we're not doing it.
Yeah.
If you guys are comfortable with the idea of having public wastewater treatment systems in all your village centers
Well, it doesn't have
as
to
a
be all of them
possible,
either.
as a possible future land use, then we can change it.
So it has to
As
say
you said,
something about
it's
public
advisory,
sewer.
it's,
So we could say.
I just don't understand why we have to include that sentence. Like Steve said, include the positive and not the negative. Simply say where we want to have it and
Leave the rest open.
leave the rest open towards
We can say, we
later.
didn't say that, and you can say it both correct.
Because we haven't done any research into any other interest in the areas, other parts of town.
Well,
Well, like
we're not
Jocelyn
interested
said, though,
because-
it's in a bunch of other documents, so there might be a reason that it's there. We just don't
I mean,
know.
I can look at the statute again.
So
but-
we're generally thinking we could leave out the sentence about avoidance unless
Yes.
there's a very good.
Unless there's a
reason
very,
to put
very
it.
good reason to put it in.
I think Jocelyn needs to
And
check
what
the
about the
statute,
limiting it
because
to
there's
West
a reason
Cornwall?
why it's in every.
Well,
Do we
make a
want-
statement
consider
as
Cornwall Bridge
to
too?
here and not
Well,
there.
the thing is, it
That's
just
the
says
case,
it's
then
appropriate in
it's-
West Cornwall.
Sure.
If you
Okay.
take out the second sentence, you're not saying it's not appropriate
Okay.
somewhere
All right.
else. You're not saying
Yep.
anything.
I get it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so let's, I think we're in agreement on that. So the really important thing we have to do is schedule, is decide if there's some reason, you know, well, when we want to have the public hearing. And from what I've heard tonight, the main thing that could be a stickler on this is what the Attorney General says about the high-speed internet stuff.
Whether we can get a response quickly.
Yeah, that's the big thing. Can we get a response right away?
Yeah. Yeah, so,
Well, that can be something that you change at the public hearing.
That's true.
Right.
that
that's very
isn't, that isn't big enough to say,
Hold up
kick
the
it
whole
back to
process.
us.
Well, no, I mean, it's just the word, it'd be the wording of it too, like, right? Because we still want to promote high-speed connectivity. Whether or not we say fiber optic or not, I think is what the real
Okay.
question is.
Yeah.
I just think there's a misunderstanding about what fiber optic is, but,
That's I get it.
Okay, so we could add the edit
Yeah, I think that's.
prior to the
yeah,
public
again,
hearing.
you know, I think, like you said,
Well, and maybe
there
we'll
will
get a
be more
response back.
comments, I'm sure, at the public hearing, and some of them you will want to incorporate into the final plan, and you could still, for example, vote to adopt a plan and say with all of these edits.
Yes,
Um,
thank you.
So let's shoot for the
That's a-
12th.
That's a, thank you, Justin.
And the other thing too is, if there's a big issue, it's not to say you can't amend your plan, to change, as we've had to, as every
So does
town
anyone
makes
feel
amendments.
we should,
Prolong it?
yeah,
No. Prolong our suffering.
okay, well then, I guess we're all decided that it will go ahead, and I'll compose an announcement in the Chronicle to that effect. I'm right?
Yeah.
And then just some odds and ends, we don't even have to talk about this, but it's a great idea to have photos of the subcommittee in this town plan. Is that going to be a problem for the others?
We can just take that out, we can add a picture of me.
Okay. I have such a great picture of the Natural Resources
We
Subcommittee.
could just.
It
put
has
them
Margie sticking out your tongue.
Yeah, you can put whatever you got and stick it in there, whatever you don't have. I don't think anyone's gonna be offended if they didn't.
Well,
make
does
the,
anybody, I thought it was sort of great for people to see, but it's going to be a problem for you, Joe?
I,
Can you even get it?
And the others?
Oh, come on, Joe.
We can do it.
We could do it.
well, it's not just getting the 5 people together, it's also getting someone to take the picture.
It isn't
A
gonna happen.
A selfie.
Right, last one.
I'm not doing so.
How about if we say this, that if you get the picture done within like 2 weeks, we'll have pictures, and if you don't,
We won't.
Fair enough.
we won't,
Okay.
okay?
Yep.
Well,
2
I'll take
week,
a picture for you. I'm a good photographer.
2 week deadline.
gonna organize this party?
Um,
I have to get the people together.
I know, it's a
Yeah, but
bit,
it happens, it
They're
happens,
here.
it doesn't.
and then,
And they weren't here, and now they're
To
not.
get them to show up.
and then the sort of last thing
Yeah.
this is just a tweak that we can do this at the town plan, but I think the thanks to Jocelyn that is mentioned in the town plan isn't quite effusive enough. And I think we're able to come up with something better.
We'll put a picture there.
I think right. I think at the moment, all it says is something like in technical assistance. And it's a little more than that. So why don't we agree that we'll come up with something better.
Sure.
Sounds good.
I think also you could put in there that this is a good example of regional cooperation because other towns have spent hundreds of thousands of dollars to get what you got out of Johnson. So I think it's not only it's good work, you get somebody that has experience in this area. and
We
it's
got a
gonna charge
very
you.
good
So I mean, I
Jocelyn.
think people like to hear that.
Is there anything
you're not
else?
regretting
Is there
this,
anything
right?
else we have to
That's it. Say goodbye.
talk about?
Do we have to do anything else on that agenda?
Oh, you're right.
Adjournment.
Duh.
You don't have
Can
to
we
approve the
not?
minutes, you don't have.
Well, then, is there anything else we have to do on the agenda?
I move that we adjourn.
Thank you.
Is there a second?
I'd second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
That's it.
That's a good
We
one.
did it.
Right now.
Thanks.
Pretty good.